Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II, World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, we took on America in the Pacific after ending our turn, moving into July 17th of 1942. It's now time to go ahead and deal with the Soviet front. One more turn, and the Frontier Corps at Minsk should be completely out of supply. I do believe that it's possible. I think it was at 2 last turn. The Frontier Corps is getting far worse at being able to retaliate. Our lack of capable bombers or artillery, more importantly artillery I'd say, since bombers just cannot compete with the German fighter coverage, has made this advance relatively slow. But seeing as we're not on the defensive but rather on the offensive, way earlier than in history, we do have that kind of time to spare. We did suffer a fair amount of casualties on the front line with the Germans. However, the Germans failed to actually kill like a single unit completely, whereas we have been killing a couple of theirs. We've been inflicting casualties on them. They are starting to lose the ability to really maintain this front. They are putting a lot of effort into solidifying their front up here, but you can see some weakening around and some desperate attacks, such as in Brest, to try to fill in where they're lacking. And down here by Brest-Litovsk, they have almost nothing. The moment Minsk is actually fully under our control and our supply spread allows us to move further, we have a lot of good shit that we can get done. So let's take a look at what we can do in the north. We've been pushing for a couple turns with not much time to rest a lot of these units. So there are a lot of units up here that are rather injured that need a chance to recover. One, namely, being the first mechanized here. However, before I send it out, I'm going to get one hit in on this Italian army, dealing 4 damage and taking 1 damage, a die roll that we definitely ended up winning. We want to probably just get it as far out as possible because it needs time to completely replenish before it comes back in, rather than just swapping back and forth. We don't want it to be the victim of any upcoming air raids, and the mechanized can move rather fast, as we can see, so we'll just move it up behind the lines here near Riga for the time being. The 5th tanks here have a similar story to tell, but they can already reinforce, so they will reinforce as is right now, leaving a hole in the front for us to fill. We also have the 14th Army that has a similar circumstance happening to it, where it is in some danger, and we wouldn't really be able to attack and get it away unless we just swapped back with this army, in which case the enemies would still see it, and there's a chance that our army would take even further casualties, with the 4th German army having inflicted 5 damage to it in return for only 1. Pretty brutal, this army right here in Memel. Memel's going to be a tough nut to crack. We will go ahead and take this armored train and move it up the line, where it could be useful in damaging this enemy Italian army some more, dealing another 1 damage and taking none. There's a lot of elements here that really just need time to reinforce and repair, and we're not in a rush. It's the middle of summer and the winter doesn't really negatively affect us. So anyone on this front generally that needs time to repair any damage at all will get the time that it needs to go ahead and do that. Well, if they can, not all of them can. I'll go ahead and put the first shock heavy tanks to work here trying to kill the Italian tanks. The Italians cannot replenish their losses nearly as easy as the Germans. So if we get rid of them off the front, that'll help thin their line, which is why I'm definitely trying to focus them down over here. We dealt 3 damage with our attack. We took 2 damage. That's something we'll definitely want to end up replacing. We'll swap in this light tank from the rear, which unfortunately cannot do very good damage against the opponents there. Thankfully, this armored train is so mobile that even after moving in and striking, it can still move away again, so we can drive in the first tanks here into position where they can attack either of the Italians, albeit not to the same great effect. We'll go reinforce the 16th Army right here, and for now, what I'll do with the 14th Army is I'll swap it out for the 14th Army into this location, which is undoubtedly going to come under attack again. More of the, I believe, elite units from the east, but that are getting their shit kicked in, I might add, just to hold the front rather than to be particularly cocky on it. I do wish to completely encircle this tank. I think that would be a pretty handy maneuver to do. If it gets stuck in here and we kill it, yeah, it's going to run out of supply like instantaneously because there's no flow of supply in here otherwise. So we just need to somehow cut it off, ideally, and then maybe like that'll be good. I don't know. So I'm going to take the Vladivostok Corps. I'm going to move them across the river behind the enemy tank to try to block it off alongside the first corps here, who is pretty battered, who we're going to go ahead and reinforce. They might die, but we just kind of need them to hold. If the Panzer tries to break out anywhere, it's going to try to break out right here, is what's going to happen more than likely. We'll take the 3rd Corps and move it to where the Vladivostok Corps just was. We'll take the 3rd Army and move it to where the 3rd Corps just was. We'll take the 1st Anti-Air, and this might be silly, but I'll move it up here. Maybe the Frontier Corps will shoot it, maybe it won't, who knows, but it's going to chill out in this marsh and just try to keep the Minsk group encircled more than anything else. I will go ahead, take the 1st tank, and attack the 12th, let's say the army, dealing 3 damage and taking 1 damage, so not so bad. That army will certainly be out of commission. The Italians, again, are going to be stretched thin on every front, using all their MPPs just to keep their units afloat if they even manage that. You know what, we'll take the 18th Army and we will attack the enemy German Corps here, dealing 1 damage, taking 2. Okay, that was not the most fortunate way that could have gone, but it was saying we would kill 2 and take 1, and if I see odds like that, I feel like I just need to take them in order to keep up any momentum at all. This corps isn't in very much danger, so I will go ahead and attack with it against the enemy Italian army, dealing, okay, 2 damage and wiping it out completely, taking 1 damage, but that was totally worth it. Now, we're not going to advance this corps because it's not in a very good position to be advanced, but they might try to fill this in with a cavalry unit or something else that we could just completely demolish upcoming. The enemy 14th Army from Germany, which is pushed across the river and taking the settlement of Uman, is particularly vulnerable to our frontline attacks right now, which is quite an opportunity that we've been waiting for. I'll reinforce the cavalry corps here, the Mongolians, while they're in my sight, as well as the 1st Cavalry Corps over by Odessa. We'll take the 1st Guards Army from the east and go ahead and attack the enemy 14th Army, dealing 2 damage, taking none. We'll take the 21st Army, we'll commit another attack, and completely wiping out the enemy army at Uman. An entire German army dead due to a mixture of just poor logistics and advancing, probably out of supply. I can't quite see their supply, but Uman wasn't generating anything. Yeah, the supply in this area is not the greatest. My rapid advance, which did result in some losses, did successfully chase off a lot of the enemy HQs, which has allotted us this opportunity. The 1st Red Banner Army can be reinforced up to 10, so we'll go ahead and do that. They lose some XP, but I think they still have enough for an elite reinforcement if it comes down to it. The Rifle Corps up on the front here can deal some damage to the enemy 1st Army of Spain, which is here. We'll go ahead and attack. 2 kills, 3 on an army for no damage in return. That definitely worked out in a pretty good way for us. I'll take this corps from the rear and push that up to Uman, where it can get a chance to also attack the enemies from Spain. We'll swap the 2nd Light Tanks in first and get them to attack, dealing 3 damage and only losing 1. Not so bad. This is not enough to finish them off probably, but we still want to take this equal trade. Unfortunately, it was not an equal trade. We dealt nothing and lost 2, thankfully only on a corps compared to what the enemies are losing on. We have the Stalingrad Corps here, which can be reinforced. We'll go ahead and get that back up to strength. Some of our troops on the front here are pretty battered. We're going to go ahead and reinforce this corps up here on the front. It's in pretty good supply, as well as this mechanized. We will swap out the mechanized unit here with the Shock Guard heavy tank that has arrived. We will reinforce the mechanized now that it's safer in the rear. We'll move the Sevastopol Corps forward up towards the enemy lines. We'll take the army, the 21st, that just helped secure Uman, and redirect them southwards to fill in the line down here. We do have the 4th Corps here that is rather damaged, but we're going to go ahead and just resupply them up to full strength while they're along the front. We have some wounded corps in the rear that have recovered that we're going to cycle back up towards the front, wherever we can find a reasonable place to position them. 209 MPPs remaining. Our research is at 1900 out of 2000. All we could really get to research if we wanted to research anything would be naval warfare. I'm going to forego that right now and focus on keeping our units on the front up to strength, including the Kiev fighters, the 2nd Red fighters. Are there any other units like this that need anything like this? We can actually move this fighter group up to give it some enhanced coverage. All the fighters up here are good to go. The medium bombers can move north towards Tallinn and covering the Baltic Sea. We're going to leave the submarine that's here, right here. That leaves us with 172 MPPs. That leaves us with the ability to start upgrading and reinforcing the anti-tank, as well as some ability to operate some units. Actually, the Leningrad Corps still needs to be reinforced. We need to operate mechanized and some other units down to a front. Now, what front is the question? I think I'd like to leave most of our mechanized units and etc. down south because they're needed more down there. So we'll send that over that away. We have a rifle corps, 14 MPPs to operate that. Corps are in a bit weirder of a position. We could use some more infantry down south as well. We could also use help in the north, so it's a little back and forth. We could use reinforcements of some kind to the north one way or another. Either way, we don't need massive reinforcements over here because once Minsk falls and the supply line opens up, we move our HQ forward. There's not enough here to stop this gigantic amount of human bodies we have over here. So if you see me prioritizing sending our units south, that's why. There's a bigger front here to manage, and we're going to need more units there in the long run. We have so many units that broke out from around Gomel and Orsha and Smolensk that there's not enough here to stop us at the time being, and eventually these fronts will also unify. So realistically, right now, I think I will send this corps south because it will just have more overall versatility and use over there. The Leningrad Corps, I might decide to do something different with, not to mention when we actually get all of these anti-tanks ready to go. So let's look at the anti-tanks, why don't we? They can get anti-tank weapons 1 and anti-air defense 1, which we'll go ahead and we will start giving them that. They will still need to get reinforced, but that's a whole nother turn. Right now, we can pay at least enough to get this much done. We have the First Guard tactical bombers also arriving that we can go and send up to the coast here. Let's just send them up by Tallinn where everything else currently is. We're not moving any of the HQs right now. There's nowhere particularly advantageous to put them. Getting the Zhukov one over to Odessa would be nice, but right now Odessa has its own problems. We're going to take this brave 10th Corps and we will march it southwest. Not all the way up to Bucharest, but southwest enough that it allows us to kind of advance our lines. What's supply like over here? Alright, it's still good enough. It'll get better once we get the Zhukov HQ over to Odessa, which we can hopefully do next turn. We're not going to upgrade too much farther or anything. I'm just trying to lure out the enemies and see how they reorganize and get themselves together after all the damage they've been taking and the units that will need to retreat and things like that. Just trying to put them in a situation where they have to react more than anything. Still no targets particularly standing out to me to use the paratroopers on. I'll keep an eye out, however. They still have enough range to realistically be positioned back here rather than closer up to the front. With that, I believe we have completed our entire turn as the Soviets. So let's go ahead and look at China, where I was setting up quite a risky naval operation here. I am going to stick to my plans because even if this fails, it doesn't really hurt us in the long run. I mean, if we go look at the reports of Japanese national morale, we can see it's down to 43. If we can kill one unit landing and hold Hiroshima, that's probably going to make them freak out. Even if they get a bunch of free unit spawns, all I need to do is keep throwing bodies. And if this makes them move their navy, then even better. That opens up things that the Brits and Indians can do without needing to worry about a strong Japanese naval presence. To start, however, I'm going to want to actually move more units over to Okinawa to get that completely secured. Now, quote-unquote completely. Does it actually need any help being secured? I don't know. But we're going to put this AA into a transport, and we're going to send that down, land it at Naha, and swap it around over here so that it can provide anti-air coverage over this island. Now, sending more land units over here might be unnecessary because of the lack of any further ports. Its proximity to Japan might instead make it the perfect place to relocate some fighters, and now maybe even tactical bombers, especially since we've destroyed so much of their stuff here. Making the jump would be a little difficult. How far can you actually move? Well, by default, you get 10 action points. So let's say we had you on the coast here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Both of you should be able to make the jump if you were in the correct place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, you should be able to make the jump if you're in the right place and barring bad weather. The enemy carriers, we don't really need much protection from them over here. So if I get the tactical bombers on Hagushi, and then they base there defended by the anti-air, and eventually Hagushi's supply should go back up to 5. I don't even know if we need the fighters over there. The supply would certainly be a little worse down to 4, but It would be better than what we can use them for on the mainland right now. So we will send the first tactical bombers northeast, as well as the first fighters, to prepare ourselves for moving this air power over towards Higuchi. The Lee HQ is going to be very expensively placed in an amphibious transport for 105 MPPs. That would be very expensive to undo. Thankfully, we just have enough of these things anyway. I will go place the 6th Army in an amphibious transport over in the dock, as well as the 23rd Army, which hopefully they're not really going to be able to see. They might be able to see this stuff with planes. If they do, well, we will feel the effects of it. They'll have 5 points, 1, 2, 3, and that's enough to make the jump starting next turn for sure. For now, we just want to kind of hold off where we are. We're going to move the Flying Tigers forward just a little bit. We really want to get them into Pusan if we want them to actually have the range to operate that far out. But I also need to use Pusan as a point to stack up our units. So fighter coverage on Hiroshima might end up being a little bit lacking. Because what is your escort range with the Chinese tech? You don't have any long range at all. Escort range is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe that's not the correct range then. Intercept range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, you'd have to be exactly on Pusan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or on this other hex that we would use to rapidly send more ground units. So now I have to decide, what do I want to prioritize? Sending more ground units or getting air coverage? Realistically, more ground units would make a difference. Far better. At the very least, we have coverage over the amphibious transports themselves for right now, at least a little bit. We're going to go ahead and let's see. Can we actually upgrade any of this? We can upgrade this army with anti-aircraft defense. Okay, that's good. That's one we can use. The supply here has not spread enough to actually upgrade anything. Actually, no, it looks like it might have. It just looks like its detachment, maybe from an HQ, has made this unable to operate in that capacity. The 12th Army here can upgrade. It can also get elite reinforcements. As of right now, we don't need to be operating new armies to the front, because next turn they'll land and we still won't be able to bark any new ones if they land next turn. That's if they land next turn. They might not. The soonest we could embark is 2 more turns. So long as we get some armies operating down here next turn, then we would be able to leave them at the absolute earliest that we can. But even then, we have some armies that are available to go already. We can go ahead and recover Manchuli for the Manchukans, the Manchurians. I wish it renamed it if you took it back over, quite frankly. We can upgrade anti-air into the 5th Army. We're burning through our MPPs this time around, that's for sure. We'll reinforce this core while it's up here. Core, this army can now operate. So, because I don't believe it can get any elite reinforcements, I will just operate it right now, all the way down to Pusan to get it ready. Any armies that are free are going to be better than no armies at all. This corps will go chill out at Port Arthur, where it will have a bit better of a location where it can stay. Not that we need fortifications here, but barring the potential that the Japanese do somehow counterattack and lacking anything better to do with my engineers, I'm going to send them forward up to this river, and we are going to fortify against enemy incursions. We probably want a 3-side facing. So 3 sides facing directly south. So it kind of guards this way, and this way. I don't think it's going to guard this way, but we can set up another one over there. I don't expect to have to make a defensive line here. In fact, it'd probably better just make a defensive line here, but there's a river here, which is why I'm looking at this in the way that I am. Again, probably irrelevant, because we're probably never going to be put in this situation to begin with. We will take this army and just start running it down the road, the 41st, which doesn't have enough supply to really do anything else at the moment. These special forces are in good enough supply to get upgrades, but it doesn't look like there's anything I can necessarily do with them. The special forces can disembark from wherever the hell they choose, is something to note. So let's go ahead and operate them and get them right over here, because if they embark, let's say right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not enough to land, I think. Or they might still be able to land at the end of the range. If we get lucky and they embark here, then it'd be less, and they might be useful up on this front for this purpose. So we will go ahead and operate the Dare to Die Special Forces to the front over there. There's little reason to keep anything on the border with the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union is guaranteed to be in the Allies the entire time. The heavy artillery can get elite reinforcements. It can also move off of this location to the railroad. I think I'll just go ahead and give it the elite reinforcements for the time being. And that should be good enough. I have no idea where I'm going to need to place a lot of other things. If anything else boards the long distance from here, it would ideally probably just be another army. We're not going to need another HQ, so I might want to get another army up here. We have an army in position to just operate up there already. Speaking of armies, the assault on Haiko must continue to weaken the Japanese in whatever way we can. Attack as the first army. 3 damage dealt. Little to none taken, or, well, none. We'll move the first army away, move... Oh, the weather's bad, so we can't actually move the 68th Army over there right now, which is highly unfortunate. Alright, well, we should still be able to move next turn, for whatever that's worth. I should have checked that first. I don't think I can undo that. Yeah, no. There is an undo button, but you can't undo in almost every single situation. So it's a little useless most of the time. Supply down here at Saigon is improving, as I hoped that it would, so we can get this core back up to strength, which is good. The enemy carrier fleet's been snooping around here, as we've seen. I think I will go ahead and just operate the 13th Army over to Shanghai, and we will take the 4th Army and just move that up to Canton for the time being, so it's over on the rail line as well. A lot of these cores and stuff are going to end up being pretty, well, useless to me in the upcoming times, but we do want to keep things moving along. So for now, because there's still stuff up here, we're going to want to get some units moving, at least into better supply locations. The 2nd Corps will go down to Harbin. This unit, I guess, could stay where it is. We're going to take the HQ at Hsing and start moving it southeast, where it could provide any supplies and any things to all the units over here, including our fighters. I could operate it, but it's just so close, I feel like there's no point to. We might as well hang on to those points. The L Corps here could certainly do with getting a move on. The supply trickling in should be good enough from these other locations. We're just going to step on Yankee for right now and stay there. We can operate cores to wherever we need them. We have them in pretty, I think, decent locations to begin with. We can get an elite reinforcement for the 68th Army, so we'll go ahead and do that since he can't actually advance on the position or anything like that. He could still get anti-air as well, but he doesn't really need it right now for anything he's doing, which is fine. That pretty much finishes up everything that we're going to be doing as China. Let's go ahead and get this DEI sub somewhere safer. Do we have any upgrades for this carrier? We do. More advanced fighters and long-range aircraft. Let's get those. Prioritize getting those. Also prioritize getting upgrades for naval ships out here in every instant. And also focus reinforcing the ones that need reinforcement so we can get this fleet up to snuff, just in case we do end up needing a fleet over here to accomplish anything for us. Sadly, a lot of the ports over here still just have really, really terrible supplies, so reinforcing the subs that have just lost massive casualties from the hard lessons we learned over here is not going to be the easiest, because we're not going to actually be able to get them in port or anything anytime soon. 111111 is the actual upgrades we can get, so we can move this submarine to take the place of one of these ships, just like the other one is moving to do the same thing. I guess it can, we can't change its mode. I was just going to say, I guess we could just keep it in silent. We have already moved it, so therefore we cannot change its mode any further. Due to my overall lack of preparation for the Pacific with India, due to my thinking that I would be able to make very good use of them over in Africa, they're not really ready to do much of anything. They can transport places, but really the best hope we could have of utilizing them would be transporting them to Malaya and then hopping on the DEI from there. But the enemy carrier stuff over here is just, it's too much. They have too many of their ships over here. I swear to God, almost their entire remaining fleet is probably down right here. Almost all their ships, especially capital ships and their remaining escort carrier and 2 fleet carriers. We're not breaking through that anytime soon. Not with what the UK has over here in terms of ships, even with the Commonwealth ships arriving. So what we're going to go ahead and do instead is just pour some more research funding in. In this case, we'll go for anti-air defense, as that could be very, very handy for the ground troops for resisting enemy carrier strikes, assuming they stay in this region or become the main threat. The British Sudanese Defense Force Corps can get infantry weapons level 2, so we'll go ahead and give them that. The Vendetta Destroyer is good to start moving northwest. We'll go ahead and put that into Naval Cruise. We'll just send it directly up northwest, trying to avoid the DEI, and then we'll head north and join that up with the British fleet, just letting these submarines continue to run amok for now. If I do get those maritime bombers for America, what I could make really good use of them for is sending them down here. They wouldn't even need any fighters accompanying them. Their range should be long enough that they could just start searching and bombing everything down here. multiple maritime bombers could definitely defend the coasts of Australia. If need be, they would just need to position themselves in a place of supply, which is also not very common in Australia. I didn't really prepare Australia and New Zealand enough. I didn't do enough work there. I didn't pay attention enough over there. We do have the capability to try going on an offensive here in Papua New Guinea, so let's move our special forces up and see what we have here. We can trade 1-to-1 with the enemy special forces that are 2 out of 3 entrenchment. We can also move our 2nd Corps forward, which is not going to do quite as well. Supply in this region, I don't know if it's really going to be enough to maintain a presence here. The enemy special forces is actually experienced and has elite reinforcements, which is why the odds for it are so good despite all other things. We do have the capability to just throw points at this problem though. So let's go ahead and attack with the special forces. We dealt 2 damage and took 1 damage, knocking the enemy readiness and morale into a much lower position and lowering their entrenchment overall. We don't have entrenchment here, unfortunately, and the Corps still cannot make any actual good progress for the time being. I wish that it could. Let's see, if we move the HQ up, there's a chance the HQ could generate enough supply for us to maintain the front. That's a big maybe. I could try it. I don't know if this will actually work out, but I can try it, leaving Port Moresby technically undefended for the time being. I don't think the AI is smart enough to really utilize that opening very well though, so I won't concern myself with it. We can go ahead into diplomacy here as the UK, and I will want to, because I believe it was the UK that actually finally got a diplomatic chit to move, and yes, they did. It went into Finland, who now only needs a 5% chance, or a 5% movement to get them into the Allies. We have 4 chits invested in them, 20% chance of success per turn. I think I will leave that the way it is and go instead and take this chit and put that into Sweden with the USSR chit to try to start moving them towards us for the reasons that I have discussed in prior videos. And now that wraps up everywhere in the world except for Europe under the UK's jurisdiction. So that'll be it for this episode. Next episode, we will handle the rest of what the UK has to do and progress into the next turn and see where things take us. For now, let me know what you guys think about how the progress of this is going. Again, it is July 17th, 1942. As you can kind of see with the units, the current border and the way things are, even with my mistakes, this is going better than history, with the exception of Spain joining the Axis, and I think we're doing pretty damn well. And with that, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.